After an argument, my wife abandoned me at a train station upstate, with no money and no ID. I was about to start walking the 30 miles to my house when, suddenly, a blind man sitting on a bench said, "Pretend you're my son. My private driver will be here in 5 minutes, and your wife is going to regret leaving you next to the richest businessman in this city." I know it sounds impossible. I know it sounds like one of those stories you hear and think must be fake, but I swear on everything I love that every word I'm about to tell you is true. And if you give me just a few minutes, you'll understand how that moment changed my life forever. My name is Henry. I'm 60 years old. And until that cursed day, I thought I knew what pain was. 35 years of marriage to Lisa. 35 years working as a warehouse employee, getting up before dawn, coming home with calloused hands and a broken back, all to give her a decent life, all to hear her say it was never enough. But that Saturday morning, everything exploded. We had traveled upstate to visit a cousin of hers. 2 hours on a bus, with Lisa glued to her phone, smiling at messages she never showed me, writing things she never shared with me. I stared out the window, pretending not to see the obvious, because sometimes the silence hurts less than the truth. When we arrived at that small train station, lost in the middle of nowhere, she wanted to buy some local sweets at a shop across the square. I told her I'd rather wait for her sitting on a bench. My knees just can't take it like they used to. And that's where it all started. Sitting? Sitting again, Henry? Her voice cracked like a whip. You're always tired. You always have some excuse. You know what? I'm sick of it. Sick of living with an old man with no ambition, no money, and nothing to offer me but mediocrity. The people around us started to stare. I felt shame burn my face. "Lisa, please, let's not do this here," I whispered, trying to calm her down. "Here? Not here, Henry? Then where? In our miserable house? In that apartment you can't even finish paying for?" She laughed bitterly. "Look around you. Look where we are. In a filthy station in a forgotten town, because we can't even afford to travel like normal people." Every word was a direct blow to my chest. I tried to touch her arm, but she pulled away as if I had burned her. "Don't touch me. I don't want you to ever touch me again." The silence that followed was worse than the screams. Lisa took a deep breath, looked at her phone, and then looked at me with eyes I no longer recognized. Cold, empty eyes. "You know what, Henry? It's over. I can't take it anymore. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life tied to a failure." She opened her purse, took out my wallet and my ID, and dropped them on the wooden bench next to me. But before I could react, she snatched them back up. "Better yet, I'll keep these. After all, what do you need them for out here? Lisa, what are you doing?" My voice came out broken, almost a plea. "I'm leaving you, Henry. Right here, right now. You can walk back home if you want, or you can stay here forever. I don't care." She turned and walked toward where the bus that brought us was parked. The driver was still there, having a coffee. I watched her get on, say something to him, and the bus started. Without me. Leaving me there in the middle of nowhere, without a single dollar in my pocket, without identification, without anything. I stood paralyzed, watching the bus disappear down the dusty road. The sun beat down hard on my head. The station was almost empty. A few street vendors, a woman with 2 children, and an old man sitting on the bench opposite me, wearing dark glasses and holding a white cane. A blind man. I felt the world crumble beneath my feet. 30 miles to my house. 30 miles under the sun, without water, without money, without anything. At 60 years old, with shattered knees and a heart broken in 1,000 pieces. I sat on the bench, buried my face in my hands, and for the first time in decades I cried. I cried from rage, from helplessness, from shame. How had I gotten here? At what point had my life become this? And then I heard a voice next to me, soft but firm. "Excuse me, young man." I lifted my head. The blind man was turning his face toward me, as if he could see me through those dark glasses. "Are you talking to me?" I asked, clumsily wiping away my tears. "Yes, you. I heard everything, and I'm very sorry for what just happened to you." He paused, and then smiled in a strange way. "But I think I can help you." I didn't understand. "Help me? A blind old man? I don't want to bother you, sir. Thank you, but I'll be fine." "No, you won't be fine." His voice turned serious. "But you will be if you listen to me. I need you to pretend something for me, just for a few minutes." I stayed silent, confused. The old man leaned slightly toward me and whispered, "Pretend you're my son. My private driver will be here in 5 minutes, and your wife is going to regret leaving you next to the richest businessman in this city." I stared at him like he was crazy. Pretend to be his son? The richest businessman in the city? This had to be a joke or worse, some kind of scam. But something in that man's voice, something in the calm way he spoke, made me hesitate. "Sir, I... I don't understand. Why would you do that for me? You don't even know me." The old man smiled, that strange smile, as if he knew something I didn't. "Because I know exactly what it feels like to be alone, abandoned, with no one to lend you a hand. And why can't I?" He adjusted his dark glasses. "My name is Frank, Frank Sterling. And if that last name sounds familiar, it's because you've probably heard of me. Frank Sterling." The name hit me like a lightning bolt. Of course I knew it. Everyone in the region knew that name. Owner of the largest food processing plant in the state, several hotels, and land that stretched for miles. A man whose fortune was estimated in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And he was here, sitting next to me, in a forgotten train station. Mr. Sterling, I can't. This doesn't make any sense. It makes all the sense in the world, Henry. He said my name even though I had never told him. "I heard your wife call you. I heard every word she said to you. And let me tell you something. A woman who abandons her husband like that, without mercy, without dignity, deserves to see what she just lost." My heart was pounding. I didn't know if it was fear, hope, or just the adrenaline from the absurdity of the situation. But why would you do this for me? Frank sighed, and for a moment his face filled with a deep sadness. "Because 30 years ago my only son died in an accident. He was about your age at the time. And since that day I've lived with an emptiness that nothing can fill." He paused. "My driver will be here in a few minutes. When he arrives, just play along. Call me Dad. Act like you've been waiting for me, and believe me when I say your life is about to change." Before I could answer, I heard the sound of an engine approaching. A black, gleaming BMW SUV pulled into the station's parking lot. The tinted windows reflected the sun like mirrors. The vehicle stopped right in front of us, and a man in a suit got out quickly. "Mr. Sterling, sorry for the delay. The traffic on the highway was complicated." "Don't worry, Stephen. You're right on time." Frank extended his hand toward me. "Help me up, son." The word son froze me for a second. But something inside me, maybe desperation, maybe curiosity, or maybe just the desire for Lisa to see she had been wrong, made me react. I took his hand and helped him to his feet. "Stephen, I'd like you to meet Henry. He's my son." The driver looked at me with obvious surprise, but quickly composed himself. He was a professional, trained not to ask uncomfortable questions. "A pleasure to meet you, Mr. Henry." "The pleasure is mine," I replied, my voice trembling. Frank leaned on my arm as if it were the most natural thing in the world. We walked to the SUV, and Stephen opened the back door for us. The interior was cream-colored leather, with wood accents and a built-in television screen. It smelled like a new car, like money, like a world that had never been mine. Just as I was about to get in, I heard a shout in the distance. "Henry! Henry, wait!" I turned, and there she was. Lisa, running toward us from the sweet shop, a bag in her hand and her eyes wide. She had seen everything. She had seen the SUV. She had seen Frank. She had seen how I was being treated with respect, as if I were someone important. She stopped a few feet from us, panting, her face filled with confusion. "Henry, what is happening? Who is this man?" Frank turned his face toward where Lisa's voice was coming from, though he couldn't see her. He smiled with a calmness that chilled me to the bone. "Excuse me, madam, but I believe you're mistaken. My son doesn't have time to chat with strangers. We have an important family dinner waiting for us at home." "Your son?" Lisa looked at me as if I had gone insane. "Henry, what is this man talking about? What is all this?" For the first time in 35 years, I felt something I had never felt in front of my wife. Power, control. The tables had turned, and I wasn't on the losing side. "Lisa, I think you made it very clear a few minutes ago that you wanted nothing more to do with me, so please don't make this any harder, but I..." She stammered, searching for words. "I was just angry. You know how I get." "I didn't mean it." "Of course you meant it." My voice came out firm, without a tremor. You meant every word you said. And you know what? It's okay. Because you're right. You're right that I deserve something better. Frank squeezed my arm slightly, as if giving me silent support. Henry, son, let's go. Your godmother is waiting for us for lunch. He turned to Stephen. Please take us home. I got into the SUV. Frank got in after me. Stephen closed the door, and the sound was like the closing of a chapter of my life. Through the tinted window, I saw Lisa standing there, her mouth open, the bag of sweets dangling from her hand, watching us drive away. The SUV pulled away smoothly. The air conditioning was perfect. Classical music played softly from the speakers, and there I was, sitting next to a blind millionaire who had just changed my destiny in a matter of minutes. Are you okay? Frank asked, without looking at me. I don't know. I still don't understand what just happened. What just happened, Henry, is that you taught your wife a lesson she will never forget. She saw that the man she abandoned like trash has more value than she ever imagined. He paused. But this is just the beginning. What do you mean? Frank smiled again. That smile that hid secrets. I mean that if you really want to change your life, if you really want that woman to regret ever leaving you, you need to stay with me for a while. You need to be my son. Not just for a moment, but for long enough for everyone to believe it, including her. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Fear, excitement, disbelief, hope. And why would you do that for me? I still don't understand. Frank took off his dark glasses for the first time. His eyes were clouded, covered by a white film. Eyes that couldn't see but seemed to look straight into my soul. Because I'm tired of being alone, Henry. Because my son died 3 decades ago and I never got to say goodbye to him. Because I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, but I have no one to share it with. His voice cracked slightly. And because something tells me that you are a good man. A man who deserves a second chance. Tears returned to my eyes, but this time they weren't of pain. They were from something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. I don't know what to say, Mr. Frank. Say yes. Say you'll trust me. And you'll see how everything changes. I looked out the window. The train station was already a distant dot on the horizon. And somewhere in that dot, Lisa was still standing, wondering what on earth had just happened. I took a deep breath. Yes, I trust you. Frank smiled and put his glasses back on. Perfect. Then, son, welcome to your new life. The drive to Frank's mansion took 40 minutes, but for me it felt like 40 seconds. My mind kept replaying the scene over and over. Lisa's face when she saw me get into that SUV, the confusion in her eyes, the instant regret. 35 years of putting up with her scorn, her constant complaints, her way of making me feel small, and it only took 5 minutes for everything to be reversed. The SUV turned off the main highway and onto a private road lined with ancient trees. In the distance, I began to see a huge colonial-style building with white walls and a red tile roof. There were immense gardens, water fountains, and a wrought iron gate that opened automatically as we approached. "Welcome to your new home, Henry," Frank said calmly, as if this were the most normal thing in the world. My new home. The words sounded so unreal they almost made me laugh, but there was no laughter in my chest, only a tight knot of disbelief and fear. Stephen stopped the SUV in front of the main entrance, got out quickly, and opened our door. I helped Frank get out, and he leaned on my arm firmly. There was a confidence in the way he moved, as if he had been doing this with me for years. "Stephen, please inform Jane that the East Wing guest room needs to be prepared for my son, and tell her to use the new sheets. The Egyptian cotton ones. Right away, Mr. Sterling." We entered the house, and my eyes couldn't take in everything I was seeing. The foyer was enormous, with Italian marble floors, a hand-carved wooden staircase leading to the second floor, and a crystal chandelier that must have cost more than my entire apartment. There were paintings on the walls, sculptures, and a scent of cleanliness and fresh flowers that filled every corner. A woman in her 50s, dressed in an impeccable uniform, appeared from one of the side doors. Her face showed surprise when she saw me, but she quickly masked it with a professional smile. "Mr. Sterling, it's good to see you. Do you need anything?" "Yes, Jane. I'd like to introduce you to Henry. He's my son. He'll be living with us from now on." Jane looked at me with wide eyes but said nothing. She just nodded. "Of course, Mr. Sterling. I'll prepare everything immediately." "Will the young man be dining with you?" "Of course. Prepare something special, Jane. Today is an important day for this family." Family. That word pierced my chest like an arrow. It had been so long since that word meant anything warm to me. Jane hurried away, and Frank guided me toward a huge living room with large windows overlooking the garden. There were beige leather sofas, glass coffee tables, and a stone fireplace that, although unlit, dominated the room. He pointed to one of the sofas. "Sit down, Henry. We need to talk." I sat, feeling completely out of place. Frank sat across from me, his cane resting by his side, and took off his dark glasses again. His blind eyes looked at me without seeing, but somehow I felt he could see more of me than anyone with perfect sight. "I know you have many questions, and they are all valid. So I'm going to be completely honest with you." I nodded, even though he couldn't see it. 30 years ago, my son Anthony died in a car accident. He was 30 years old, newly married, and had his whole life ahead of him. From that day on, my wife was never the same. She died 5 years later, more from sadness than from any illness. And I was left alone. Alone with my money, my companies, and this emptiness I could never fill. His voice cracked slightly, but he maintained his composure. Since then, I've lived in this enormous house, surrounded by employees, business partners, people who only seek me out for my money. But no one who truly cares about me. No one to call me dad. No one to make me feel like my life has meaning beyond the numbers in my bank account. I remained silent, feeling the weight of his words. "When I heard you at that station today, when I heard how your wife humiliated you, abandoned you, treated you as if you were worthless, something inside me broke. Because I know what loneliness is, Henry, and I know what it feels like when your life no longer has a purpose." He paused. "But I also know that sometimes God puts people in our path for a reason, and I believe you are that reason for me." Tears streamed down my cheeks, and I couldn't control them. "Mr. Frank, I don't know what to say. This is too much. I'm not your son. I don't deserve any of this. Don't say that. Don't you ever say you don't deserve anything." His voice became firm. "You worked your entire life to give that woman a decent life. You sacrificed your health, your youth, your happiness, and she repaid you with contempt. If anyone deserves a second chance, it's you." Frank leaned forward as if wanting to touch me, but stopped. "I have a proposal for you, Henry. Stay with me. Not as an employee, not as a guest, but as my son. Live in this house. Learn about my businesses. Let me show you the world you were never able to know. And in return, I only ask for one thing. Keep me company, call me Dad, and make me feel that my life still has meaning." My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode. "And what about my wife? My old life?" "Your wife abandoned you, Henry. She made that decision. And as for your old life, you can go back to it whenever you want. But I guarantee that after a few months here, you won't want to go back, because you'll discover that you deserve so much more than what she made you believe." Frank held out his hand to me, searching for it in the air. "What do you say, son? Do you accept being part of my family?" I looked at his outstretched hand, wrinkled, covered in age spots, but firm. I looked around at that immense room that cost more than everything I had ever earned in my life. I thought about my small apartment, my warehouse job, about Lisa returning home after leaving me stranded. And then I thought about her face when she saw me get into that SUV. Her confusion, her regret. I took his hand. "I accept. Dad." Frank smiled, a huge, genuine smile, full of a happiness he didn't seem to have felt in years. "Thank you, son. Thank you for giving my life meaning again." We stayed like that, holding hands, two lonely men who had just found something they had lost long ago. A family. Jane appeared at the door. "Mr. Sterling, dinner is ready, and Mr. Henry's room is also prepared." "Perfect. Henry, come. Let's have dinner as a family should." I stood up, still processing everything that was happening. I followed Frank to an enormous dining room with a solid wood table that could easily seat 20 people, but only 2 places were set. One at the head and one right next to it. We ate in silence at first. Roast chicken, roasted vegetables, imported red wine. Every bite tasted different, better, as if the food knew my life had changed. "Tomorrow, I'm going to call my lawyer," Frank said suddenly. "We're going to start the legal process to make you my official heir. Everything I have, the companies, the properties, the bank accounts, everything will be yours when I'm gone." I almost choked on my wine. "What?" "No, Mr. Frank. Dad, that's too much. I can't accept that. Of course you can, and of course you will. Because if not for you, then for whom? For the vultures who are just waiting for me to die to fight over my fortune? No, Henry, I'd rather give it to someone who will value it, someone who will honor my name. I didn't know what to reply. My mind was a chaos of emotions. But there's something you need to know, Frank continued, his tone more serious. Your wife is going to come back. She's going to try to get you back. She'll say she regrets it, that she made a mistake, that she loves you. And when she does, you'll have to decide whether to believe her or not. I thought of Lisa, of her eyes when she saw me leave. I don't think she'll be back, Dad. She made it very clear what she thinks of me. Frank shook his head. Oh, she'll be back. Because now you're the son of the richest man in town. And money, Henry, has a very special way of changing people's hearts. His words chilled my blood, because deep down, I knew he was right. Frank was right. It wasn't even 2 days later when my phone started ringing. Lisa. One call after another, text messages, voicemails. I ignored them all at first, but her insistence was like a hammer pounding on my conscience. Finally, on the third night, I answered. Henry, my God, you finally answered. I've been calling you nonstop. Where are you? What is all this? Who was that man? Her voice sounded desperate, almost hysterical, very different from the cold woman who had abandoned me at that station. Lisa, I think you were very clear on Saturday. You said you didn't want to be with me anymore, that I was a failure, that you deserved something better. Henry, I was upset. You know how I get when I lose my temper. I didn't mean it. Come home, please. We can talk. We can fix this. I stayed silent, looking around my new room. It was 3 times the size of our old bedroom. It had a private bathroom with a jacuzzi, a walk-in closet, and a king-size bed with sheets that probably cost more than our old mattress. The view from the window showed the garden illuminated by strategically placed lights, with a stone fountain in the center where water danced under the moonlight. I'm not coming back, Lisa. What? What are you talking about? Henry, this is your home. Your life is here. You can't just leave like this. I can, and I did. You left me with nothing in the middle of nowhere, and you know what? It was the best thing you could have ever done for me. I heard her breathing quicken on the other end of the line. Henry, that old man, that Frank, who is he? Why did you say you were his son? What's really going on? That's not your business, Lisa. Not anymore. Not my business? I'm your wife, Henry. I have a right to know where you are and who you're with. You're my wife on paper, nothing more. And soon, not even that. My lawyer will be in touch with you about the divorce proceedings. There was a long silence on the other end. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. It was soft, manipulative, the voice she used when she wanted to get something. Henry, honey, don't talk like that. We're a family. 35 years together can't be thrown away over a silly argument. Please, just tell me where you are. I'll come get you and we can talk calmly. No, Lisa, this is over. And believe me when I say, I'm going to be much better off without you. I hung up before she could reply. My hands were shaking. 35 years of marriage ended in a 3-minute phone call, but strangely, I didn't feel sadness. I felt liberation. I slept better that night than I had in years. The next morning, Frank woke me up early. Well, Jane knocked on my door to let me know that Mr. Frank was waiting for me in the dining room for breakfast. I got dressed in one of the shirts Jane had left in my closet the night before. New, designer clothes that fit me perfectly. Someone had taken my measurements without me even realizing. Frank was already sitting at the head of the table, drinking coffee, when I came down. Good morning, Dad, I said, and the word came out more naturally than I expected. Good morning, son. Slept well, I hope. Better than ever. I'm glad, because today we have an important day. We're going to visit my lawyer to start the legal adoption and inheritance paperwork. We're also going to open bank accounts in your name and teach you about the family businesses. Breakfast was plentiful. Fresh fruit, freshly baked bread, scrambled eggs, fresh orange juice. While we ate, Frank told me about his business empire. He had a food processing plant that exported to 12 countries, 3 luxury hotels, several commercial properties, and stocks in technology and energy companies. His fortune was estimated at over $500 million. $500 million. The number was so large I couldn't process it. I, who had worked my entire life for a monthly salary of barely $1,200, was now sitting next to a man who earned that in minutes. I know it's a lot to take in, Frank said, as if he could read my thoughts. But don't worry. You'll learn little by little, and Stephen will be with you every step of the way. He's been my right-hand man for 20 years. I trust him with my life. After breakfast, we got into the SUV. Stephen drove us downtown to a stylish office building. We went up to the 12th floor, where Frank's lawyer's office was. A man named Mark. No, wait, the lawyer was named Anthony. No, that was Frank's dead son. The lawyer was Stephen. No, Stephen was the driver. I got the names mixed up. The lawyer's name was Mark Stevens, a man in his 42nds, with an impeccable suit and a professional smile. Mr. Sterling, what a pleasure to have you here. And this must be the young Henry you told me about on the phone. That's right, Mark. Henry is my son, and I want you to start all the necessary legal procedures to formalize it before the law. Mark invited us to sit and began to explain the process. Legal adoption of an adult, change of last name if I wanted, a modified will, powers of attorney, joint bank accounts. My head was spinning with so much legal information. Mr. Henry, I need to ask you something important, Mark said, looking directly at me. Are you currently married? Yes, but we're in the process of divorce. I see. Then we'll need that divorce to be finalized before proceeding with some of these formalities. A legally married wife has rights to any inheritance, unless there's a prenuptial agreement or a definitive divorce decree. Frank frowned. How long does a divorce take here? It depends. If it's by mutual agreement and there are no complex assets to divide, it could be a matter of 3 to 6 months. If there's a dispute, it could take years. Henry, is your wife going to cause problems with the divorce? I thought of Lisa, of her desperate voice on the phone, of how her attitude had changed when she realized I was with Frank Sterling. She probably will, Dad. Now that she knows who you are, I don't think she'll want to let me go that easily. Frank banged his cane on the floor in frustration. Mark, take care of this. Hire the best family lawyers. I want this divorce resolved as quickly as possible, and I don't want that woman to see a single cent of my fortune. Understood, Mr. Sterling. I'll contact the firm of Jimenez and Associates. They're the best in complicated divorce cases. We left the office 2 hours later with a folder full of documents I had to sign. My head was still spinning. In less than a week, I had gone from being a warehouse employee abandoned by his wife to the adopted son of a billionaire. On the way back to the mansion, Frank spoke to me seriously. Henry, I need you to understand something. From now on, your life is going to change completely. People are going to treat you differently. They'll want to be your friends, they'll want to do business with you, they'll look for ways to get close to you, but most of them will only want your money. I understand, Dad. No, I don't think you fully understand yet, but you will soon, because your wife isn't the only one who's going to come back. Relatives who never looked for you will also show up. Friends who forgot you, people from your past who will suddenly remember how much they appreciated you. His words made me think of my sister, Claire. We hadn't spoken in 2 years. She had married a rich man, and ever since, she treated me like I was inferior. At family gatherings, she barely spoke to me, always showing off her trips, her jewelry, her new house. I have a sister, I said suddenly. Claire, we haven't spoken in a long time. Do you think she'll look for you when she finds out about this? Probably, Frank nodded. When she does, watch her intentions closely. People show their true colors when there's money involved, Henry. And believe me, you're going to discover things about people you know that you never imagined. We arrived at the mansion just as it started to rain. I went up to my room and lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. My phone vibrated. It was a message from Lisa. Henry, please, I need to talk to you. Come home. I miss you. Forgive me. I deleted the message without replying. Another message. This one was from a number I didn't recognize. Henry, it's Claire, your sister. I heard you're going through a tough time with Lisa. I want you to know I'm here for you. Call me when you can. I stared at the message for a long time. Frank was right. The rats always find the cheese. I didn't answer Claire's message, at least not immediately. I wanted to see how far her sudden interest in me would go. I didn't have to wait long. The next day, my phone rang during breakfast. It was her. Henry, brother, why haven't you answered me? I'm worried about you. Worried? The word sounded fake coming from her. Claire had never worried about me. Not when I lost my job 5 years ago. Not when Mom died and I had to pay for the funeral alone because she was on a trip to Europe. Not when I asked to borrow $2,000 for an operation for Lisa and she told me she couldn't because money was tight that month, while carrying a purse that cost $5,000. Hi, Claire. I'm fine, thanks for asking. Fine? Henry, Lisa called me crying. She told me you left her, that you went off with some strange man, that you're not answering her calls. What's going on? What's going on is that Lisa abandoned me at a train station without money and without ID, Claire, and I made the decision not to go back to her. There was a pause on the other end. But Henry, she's your wife. Couples fight, it's normal. You can't just throw everything away over one argument. It wasn't just one argument, Claire. It was the straw that broke the camel's back after years of humiliation. Well, but what about that man you left with? Lisa told me you got into a luxury SUV with an old man. Who is he? There it was, the real reason for her call. She didn't care about my well-being. She wanted to know who Frank was. She wanted to know if the rumors that were probably already circulating around town were true. He's someone who helped me when I needed it most. That's all you need to know. Henry, I'm your sister. I have a right to know who you're with. What if he's someone dangerous? What if he's using you? I almost laughed. Her, talking about using people. Don't worry about me, Claire. I'm better than ever, so it's true. You're living in the Sterling mansion, aren't you? My God, Henry, how did you manage that? Are you working for him? Are you his employee? And there was the usual contempt, barely hidden beneath her fake concern. To her, I could only be an employee of someone rich, never an equal. I'm not his employee, Claire. I'm his son. The silence that followed was long and thick. His son? Henry, what are you saying? That doesn't make any sense. It makes all the sense in the world. Frank Sterling adopted me. I'm his legal heir. And soon, when all the paperwork is finalized, I'm going to have access to his entire fortune. I heard Claire breathing heavily, processing the information. Henry, I didn't know. This is incredible. I'm so happy for you, brother. Really? Oh, yeah? You're happy? Just like you were happy when I lost my job? Or when I asked you for help and you told me money was tight? Henry, that was years ago. You know we were having financial problems back then. Sure, so much so that the next month you bought a new car. Henry, don't be like that. We're family. I know I've made mistakes, but now I want to be there for you. I want us to reconnect as siblings. Frank entered the dining room at that moment, guided by his cane. He looked at me, or at least turned his face toward where I was, and raised an eyebrow as if asking who it was. Claire, I have to go. We'll talk later. Wait, Henry. We can see each other today. We can have lunch together. It's been so long since we really talked. I'll think about it. Goodbye. I hung up before she could insist. Frank sat at the table with his usual elegance. Your sister? Yes. How did you know? By your tone of voice. There's a specific kind of weariness that only family can cause. He smiled slightly. Does she want money? She hasn't asked for it directly yet, but I know she will. Or something worse? Something worse. She'll want to use me to climb the social ladder, to show off that her brother is the son of Frank Sterling, to open doors that were previously closed to her. Frank nodded as Jane served him coffee. Family can be complicated, Henry. Sometimes the people you love the most are the ones who hurt you the most. I learned that the hard way. What happened? Frank took a sip of coffee before answering. When my son died, I had 3 siblings. 1 older, 2 younger. They all came to the funeral, they cried. They said they'd be there for me. But as soon as they read the will and saw that Anthony was my only heir, and that I now had no children, they started fighting among themselves over who should get my fortune when I died. They even sued me, Henry. My own siblings. Suing me to force me to divide my inheritance while I was still alive. His words chilled me. And what did you do? I disinherited all of them. I changed my will and made it clear they wouldn't see a single cent of my money. Since then, none of them speak to me. And you know what? I don't miss them. Because I understood they never loved me. They only wanted what I had. Frank reached his hand out to me, searching for it across the table. I took it. That's why I chose you, Henry. Because when I found you, you had no idea who I was. You didn't look for me. You didn't ask me for anything. You were at your lowest point. shattered, humiliated, and even so, when I offered you help, you hesitated. Because you're not used to receiving without giving something in return, that humility, that integrity. That's something money can't buy. His words filled me with an emotion I couldn't describe. It was gratitude, but also something deeper. It was the feeling of being valued for the first time in my life, for who I was, not for what I could give. Thank you, Dad. You don't know how much that means to me. I know, son. That's why I told you. The rest of the day we spent reviewing documents in his private office. Frank taught me about his businesses, explained contracts to me, introduced me to his partners via video call. It was overwhelming, but also exciting. For the first time in my life, I felt like my brain was being used for something more than loading boxes. In the afternoon, Stephen took me to a high-end clothing boutique downtown. Frank had insisted I needed a complete wardrobe suitable for my new position. 3 hours later, I walked out with 12 suits, 20 shirts, Italian shoes, Swiss watches, and a platinum credit card in my name with a $50,000 monthly limit. $50,000. More than I earned in 3 years of work. When I returned to the mansion, Jane was waiting for me at the entrance with a worried expression. "Mr. Henry, there's a woman waiting for you in the sitting room. She says she's your wife." My heart stopped. Lisa. I entered the room and there she was. She had dressed with care. A new dress, perfect makeup, freshly styled hair, but there was something in her eyes she couldn't hide. Desperation. "Henry, thank you for seeing me. I know I don't even deserve 5 minutes of your time, but please hear me out." I remained standing, not getting closer, keeping my distance. "You have 5 minutes, Lisa. Talk. Henry, I made the biggest mistake of my life. I was a fool, I was blind, I was ungrateful. I didn't value everything you did for me, everything you sacrificed. And when I left you at that station, I didn't know what I was doing. I was furious, frustrated with my life, and I blamed you for things that weren't your fault." Tears streamed down her face, but I had seen them before. Lisa always knew how to cry when it suited her. "I still don't hear a real apology, Lisa. I only hear justifications." "You're right. I'm sorry, Henry. I'm truly sorry. Forgive me. Please forgive me, and let's start over. We can be happy again. We can be the family we once were. The family we were? Lisa, we were never happy. At least not in the last 10 years. You always wanted more. You always complained. You always made me feel like I wasn't enough. But now everything will be different. Now you have this incredible opportunity with Mr. Sterling. We can live well, we can travel, we can have everything we always dreamed of." And there it was. The truth behind her tears. She didn't want me. She wanted the money. "Get out of this house, Lisa." "What?" "No, Henry, please." I said, "Get out, and don't come back. My lawyer will be in touch with you about the divorce. Sign the papers without a fight, and this will be over quickly. Fight, and I promise you, you will not win." Lisa looked at me with a mix of shock and rage. "This is how you repay me, Henry? After 35 years together, you throw me out like trash?" "No, Lisa, you threw me out. I'm just accepting your decision." She stood up from the sofa, shaking with fury. "This isn't over, Henry. I am your legal wife. I have rights, and I'm going to fight for what I'm owed. Fight all you want. You're not going to win." She stormed out of the house, slamming the door, and I stood there, in the middle of that luxurious room, feeling like I had just closed a chapter of my life forever. The following days were a strange mix of tranquility and tension. Frank taught me about his businesses every morning, introduced me to his most important contacts, explained how his empire worked. I absorbed everything like a sponge, discovering I had a mind for numbers and strategy that I had never been able to develop loading boxes in a warehouse. But the nights were different. At night, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Lisa, Claire, unknown numbers. Everyone wanted something from me. Everyone had discovered that Henry, the failure, the warehouse employee, was now the adopted son of the richest man in the city. A week after Lisa came to the mansion, I received a legal summons. She had hired lawyers and was suing for alimony, division of assets, and compensation for emotional distress. She was asking for $50,000 a month and half of any property I acquired during our marriage, including, her lawyers argued, any future inheritance from Frank. Mark, Frank's lawyer, almost laughed when he read the documents. "This has no legal basis. She abandoned you, there are witnesses, and any inheritance you receive from Mr. Sterling is after the separation. She has no right to anything. Then why is she trying? Because she's desperate, and because her lawyers probably told her you might agree to a settlement to avoid a long trial. It's a pressure tactic. Frank, who was sitting next to me in Mark's office, banged his cane on the floor. We are not settling for 1 cent. Mark, I want you to counterattack with everything. I want that woman to understand she made the worst mistake of her life. Understood, Mr. Sterling. I'm going to file for divorce based on abandonment. I'll present the statements from the witnesses at the train station, and I'll make sure she receives absolutely nothing. We left the office with a clear strategy, but I couldn't shake the discomfort in my chest. 35 years of marriage ending in a legal war. It wasn't how I imagined things would end. I know what you're thinking, Frank said in the SUV on the way back. You're thinking this is cruel, that maybe you should give her something to end this quickly and without so much conflict. How do you know? Because you're a good man, Henry, and good men always hesitate when they have to be tough. But let me tell you something I learned many years ago. Kindness doesn't mean being a fool. She abandoned you, she humiliated you, she made it very clear you were worthless to her. And now that you're worth something, she wants to come back. Do you really think she deserves your compassion? I don't know, Dad, it's complicated. It's not complicated. It's simple. She made her choice. Now she has to live with the consequences. That night, Claire finally showed up at the mansion. She didn't call beforehand, didn't ask if she could come. She just arrived, buzzed at the gate, and Stephen let her in after consulting me. I received her in the sitting room, the same one where Lisa had been days before. Claire walked in with her usual confidence, looking at everything with assessing eyes, mentally calculating how much each piece of furniture, each painting, each lamp cost. Henry, brother, this is incredible. This house is a palace. Hello, Claire. To what do I owe your visit? Do I need a reason to visit my brother? It's been so long since we talked face to face. I wanted to see you, to know how you are. She sat down without being invited, crossing her legs with studied elegance. I'm fine. Better than ever, in fact. I can see that. Henry, I still can't believe all this. How did it happen? How did you meet Mr. Sterling? I told her the story, the edited version. The argument with Lisa, the abandonment at the station, the meeting with Frank. I omitted the most painful details, Lisa's exact words, the depth of my humiliation. Claire listened intently, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. It's like a fairy tale, Henry. Really, I'm so happy for you. She paused. And you know, I've been thinking, now that things have changed so much for you, we could help each other. There it was, the real reason for her visit. Help each other? In what way? Well, you know that Greg and I have always been well off, but lately, things have been a bit complicated. Greg's company is going through a rough patch, and we have some financial commitments that... You want money, Claire? She blinked, surprised by my directness. It's not that I want money, Henry. It's just that I thought, as family, we could support each other. Besides, when Dad died, I helped you with the funeral expenses, remember? You lent me $2,000 that I paid back in 6 months, Claire. And before that, when I needed help, you told me you couldn't. Henry, that was different. At that time, we really couldn't. But now that I can, you expect me to help you without a second thought. Claire stiffened, her mask of the concerned sister beginning to crack. I didn't expect you to be like this, Henry. We're family. Family is supposed to help each other. You're right. It is supposed to. But for the last few years, when I was the one who needed help, you weren't there. Now that I have something, you show up with your hand out. I can't believe you're so resentful. My God, Henry, you've become like those arrogant rich people who despise their own family. I don't despise my family, Claire. I just learned to recognize who really loves me and who just wants my money. She stood up abruptly, her face red with fury. You know what, Henry? I thought this had changed you for the better, but I see it's only made you bitter and selfish. And in case you don't know, Lisa called me. She told me how you treated her, how you threw her out of this house. She's right. You're not the man I knew anymore. Good, because that man was a fool who let everyone take advantage of him. Claire walked to the door but stopped before leaving. You're going to regret this, Henry. Lisa asked me to testify in her favor at the divorce hearing. And you know what? I think I'm going to do it. Because she deserves something after putting up with you for 35 years. Her words hit me like a punch to the stomach. My own sister willing to betray me for a woman who wasn't even her blood relative. Do whatever you want, Claire, but when you walk out that door, don't come back, because you won't be welcome here ever again. Perfect. I don't need your money. And I definitely don't need a brother who thinks he's superior just because some rich old man adopted him. She stormed out, slamming the door, just like Lisa. And I stood there, shaking with anger and pain. Frank appeared at the door of the room a few minutes later, guided by the sound of my agitated breathing. I heard everything. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't want you to witness that. Don't apologize. I told you this would happen. People show their true faces when money is involved. He sat down next to me. Does it hurt? A lot. She's my sister, Dad. We grew up together. We shared a whole life. I know, son. But sometimes the people we've known all our lives are the ones we know the least. Your sister never valued you, and now that she can't use you, she attacks you. It's easier to blame you than to accept that she's the problem. She said she's going to testify for Lisa, that she's going to help her in the divorce. Frank nodded, not seeming surprised. Let her. Mark will destroy her testimony. Because the truth is on your side, Henry, and in the end, the truth always wins. I couldn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, thinking about Claire, about Lisa, about how my life had exploded into 1,000 pieces in such a short time. But I also thought about Frank, about how a stranger had shown me more love and loyalty in 2 weeks than my own family had in decades. At 3 in the morning, I went down to the kitchen for a glass of water. Frank was there, sitting in the darkness, with a cup of tea in his hands. Can't sleep either, can you? I sat across from him. No. I can't stop thinking about everything that's happening. It's normal. You're losing the people you thought were your family. It hurts, even if those people don't deserve it. How did you get over it? When your siblings betrayed you, how did you move on? Frank took a sip of tea before answering. I realized that family isn't just blood, Henry. Family is loyalty. It's love. It's being there when you're needed most. And sometimes, your real family isn't the one you're born with, but the one you choose. He looked at me with those blind eyes that seemed to see everything. That's why I chose you. And that's why I'm going to protect you from everyone who wants to hurt you, including your own sister. Thank you, Dad. Don't thank me. That's what real family does. We sat there, in silence, 2 men who had found in each other what the world had denied them. A home. But I didn't know at that moment that Claire's betrayal was just the beginning, and that the worst was yet to come. 2 weeks after Claire's visit, I got a call from Mark. His voice sounded tense, worried. Mr. Henry, I need you to come to my office as soon as possible. Things have happened that you need to know about. Frank and I arrived an hour later. Mark was waiting for us with a folder full of documents on his desk and a grave expression on his face. Mr. Sterling, Henry, I have bad news. Lisa isn't just suing for divorce. She's now alleging that you, Henry, committed marriage fraud and abandonment. She says you left her without resources, that you took all the couple's savings, and that you're living a life of luxury while she doesn't even have enough to eat. What? That's a lie. She was the one who left me with nothing. I know. But she has witnesses. Your sister Claire filed a sworn affidavit saying you were always a negligent husband, that you emotionally abused Lisa, and that you planned all of this to get Mr. Sterling's fortune. I felt as if ice water had been thrown on me. Claire, my sister said that. There's more. Lisa hired a private investigator. They're questioning the legitimacy of the adoption, alleging that you manipulated Mr. Day, Sterling into adopting you, taking advantage of his blindness and his loneliness. Frank slammed his cane on the floor with such force that the sound echoed through the office. That's ridiculous. I'm in full control of my mental faculties. No one manipulated me into anything. I know, Mr. Sterling, but they're building a case. And the worst part is, they've gotten more people. A cousin of Lisa's who is a lawyer is handling the case pro bono, and they've contacted your former employees, Mr. Sterling, looking for any statement that could make Henry look bad. My world was crumbling again, but this time it wasn't from abandonment, but from calculated betrayal. What can we do? Mark took a deep breath. We can fight. We have the truth on our side. But I need to warn you, this is going to get ugly. Very ugly. They're going to attack your reputation, Henry. They're going to try to paint you as a user, a con artist. and they're going to use your own family to do it. Frank took my hand across the desk. We fight. We're not going to let those vipers win. Mark, hire the best criminal lawyers in the country. I want to countersue for defamation, for slander, for everything we can. And I want you to investigate Lisa and Claire, too. If they're lying, there must be evidence. The following days were a nightmare. The local newspapers started publishing articles about the scandalous adoption case of the tycoon Sterling. Photos of me leaving the mansion appeared. Speculation about my intentions. Interviews with close sources who said I had planned everything from the beginning. Claire gave an interview on a local radio show. I heard it in the car, with Stephen driving and Frank by my side. My brother Henry was always ambitious, but he never had the ability to achieve anything on his own. When he met Mr. Sterling, he saw an opportunity and seized it. It's sad to see how a vulnerable old man can be manipulated just for money. Her words cut me like knives. This was my sister, the girl I used to play with in the park, the teenager who cried on my shoulder when she broke up with her first boyfriend, the woman who swore at Mom's funeral that we'd always be united. "Turn it off," I said in a broken voice. Stephen turned off the radio. Frank squeezed my hand. "Don't listen to her, son. They're the lies of a desperate woman. What if people believe her? What if everyone thinks I'm a con artist? Let them think what they want. We know the truth, and that's the only thing that matters." But things got worse. A week later, I received a court summons. Lisa had requested a temporary restraining order against me, alleging I had threatened her and that she feared for her safety. She had also filed charges of emotional and financial domestic abuse. "This is absurd," I said when Mark explained it to me. "I never threatened her. I never hurt her. I know, but she has witness statements saying the opposite. Claire says you threatened her when she came to visit you. She says she has a video recorded on her phone." "A video? That's impossible," she. And then I remembered. When Claire stormed out of the mansion, she had taken out her phone. I thought it was to call someone, but she had been recording. "They can manipulate a video," Frank said firmly. "They can edit it, take it out of context." "Mark, we need our own recordings. Would Mr. Sterling record Lisa without her consent?" "That could be illegal," Frank smiled. That smile I had learned to recognize. The smile of someone who has a plan. "Mark, do you remember what I asked you the first day we brought Henry here? To install security cameras throughout the property?" "Yes, including the sitting room, and the entrances, and the garden." My heart started to beat faster. "Dad, are you telling me that we have everything recorded? Lisa's visit, Claire's visit, every word they said, every lie they tried to build?" Mark was silent for a moment, processing the information. "Mr. Sterling, that changes everything. If we have those recordings, we can prove they're lying." "Exactly. But we're not going to show our cards just yet. We're going to let them keep digging their own grave. Let them keep lying, keep testifying. And when they are fully committed to their lies, we will destroy them with the truth." It was a risky strategy, but Frank had survived in the business world for 50 years. He knew how to play the game. The preliminary hearing was 3 weeks later. I arrived at the court with Frank, Mark, and a team of 3 other lawyers. On the other side was Lisa, dressed like a poor widow, with a simple dress and no makeup, trying to look vulnerable. Next to her was Claire, her lawyer cousin, and 2 other lawyers I recognized from a major firm. The judge was a man in his 60s, with a serious expression. He listened to arguments from both sides for 2 hours. Lisa cried strategically at the right moments. Claire looked at me with pure hatred. When it was Mark's turn to speak, he stood up calmly. "Your Honor, the defense has conclusive evidence that completely refutes all the accusations from the accusing party. We have audio and video recordings of the visits that both Mrs. Lisa and Miss Claire made to Mr. Sterling's residence. In these recordings, it can be clearly seen and heard that there were no threats, no violence, and that in fact, they were the ones who acted hostilely." Lisa's face turned pale. Claire stiffened in her seat. "Recordings?" the judge asked. "Why weren't these presented earlier?" "Because we wanted to wait for the accusing party to submit all their sworn affidavits first, Your Honor, so we could prove, beyond a doubt, that they are lying under oath." The judge looked at Lisa and her lawyers sternly. "Is this true? Are there recordings of your visits?" Lisa's lawyer cousin stood up, nervous. "Your Honor, if those recordings exist, they were made without consent, which violates." "Which violates nothing," Mark interrupted, as they were made on Mr. Sterling's private property, where there are clear notices that the property is under video surveillance. It is completely legal. The judge paused for a long time, reviewing documents. I want to see those recordings. Both parties, my office, tomorrow at 9 in the morning. This hearing is suspended until then. We left the courtroom. Lisa tried to approach me in the parking lot, but Stephen blocked her path. Henry, please, we need to talk. This has gotten out of control. I didn't want. Don't get near my son, Frank said in an icy voice. You've done enough damage. Claire appeared behind Lisa, her face distraught. Henry, please understand. Lisa convinced me. She told me you had threatened her. You lied under oath, Claire. Not only did you betray me as a sister, you committed a crime. No, I can explain. But we were already getting into the SUV. Stephen drove off, leaving them behind. Frank took my hand. Tomorrow, this all ends, son. Tomorrow, they'll see who the real victims are here. And for the first time in weeks, I felt hope. The next morning, we arrived at the judge's office at 8:45. Mark carried a tablet with all the recordings organized chronologically. Frank was by my side, calm, with that confidence that only comes from knowing you have the truth on your side. Lisa and Claire arrived 15 minutes later, accompanied by their lawyers. They both looked haggard, with deep dark circles under their eyes. It was obvious they hadn't slept. The judge received us in his private chambers, a sober office with shelves full of legal books and a massive oak desk. He told us to sit and got straight to the point. Mr. Stevens, please show me those recordings. Mark connected the tablet to a large screen on the wall. The first recording began to play. It was the day Lisa came to the mansion. The video quality was perfect, the audio crystal clear. You could clearly see her entering the sitting room, faking tears, how her words changed tone when I told her I wouldn't go back to her, and at the end, her expression of pure fury when I asked her to leave. This isn't over, Henry. I am your legal wife. I have rights, and I'm going to fight for what I'm owed. Her own words condemned her. There were no threats from me, no violence, just a woman furious that her plan to get me back to access the money had failed. The second recording was of Claire. Her entire visit, from when she entered, sizing up every piece of furniture, to the moment she asked for money without saying it directly, and finally, her explosion of rage when I said no. You're going to regret this, Henry. Lisa asked me to testify in her favor at the divorce hearing, and you know what? I think I'm going to do it. The judge stopped the video and looked at Claire sternly. Miss, did you threaten to give false testimony in favor of the plaintiff? Claire was white as a sheet. No, I was angry. I didn't mean it. But you did file a sworn affidavit saying your brother had been violent and negligent, correct? Yes, but is there any recording where Mr. Henry shows violent or threatening behavior? Mark shook his head. None, Your Honor. In all the recordings, Mr. Henry behaves calmly and respectfully, even when he is being verbally attacked. The judge leaned back in his chair, looking at Lisa and her lawyers. Ma'am, do you have anything to say in your defense? Lisa tried to speak, but her voice came out broken. I thought he had threatened me, Claire told me. So your testimony was based on what someone else told you, not on facts you personally witnessed. Yes, but... The judge raised a hand, stopping her. I've seen enough. Mrs. Lisa, Miss Claire, you have both lied under oath. You have submitted false statements to this court. That is perjury, a serious crime. Your lawyers will explain the legal consequences of your actions. Lisa's lawyer cousin tried to intervene. Your Honor, if I could. Silence. I don't want to hear any more. The judge looked at Mark. Does the defendant wish to proceed with a countersuit? Yes, Your Honor. For defamation, slander, and emotional distress. We also request that legal proceedings be brought against the accusers for perjury. Approved. Furthermore, I am dismissing all of Mrs. Lisa's claims. There is no evidence of abuse, financial abandonment, or any of the accusations she presented. The divorce will proceed under the terms of separation due to abandonment by the plaintiff. Mrs. Lisa will receive no alimony or compensation whatsoever. Lisa began to cry, but this time they were real tears of desperation. No, please, Your Honor. I have nothing. I have no money, no job. You should have thought of that before you abandoned your husband and then tried to extort him. This hearing is adjourned. My assistant will send you the official documentation within 48 hours. We left the judge's chambers. In the hallway, Claire tried to approach me again. Henry, please, brother, don't let them prosecute me. I have children. I have a family. If I'm convicted of perjury, I'll lose everything. I looked her in the eyes. The same eyes that looked at me with contempt when I was poor. The same eyes that gleamed with greed when she found out I was rich. And now, those same eyes were begging for mercy. You should have thought about your children before you betrayed your brother, Claire. Before you lied under oath. Before you tried to destroy my life out of greed. Henry, please, Lisa convinced me. She told me you had threatened her, that you had changed, that you had become dangerous. I just wanted to protect her. Liar, you wanted money. You wanted Lisa to win the lawsuit so I would give you what you asked for. But it didn't work, and now you're going to pay the consequences of your actions. Frank touched my arm gently. Let's go, son. They don't deserve any more of your time. We walked toward the exit. Behind us, Lisa and Claire were left crying in the court hallway, surrounded by lawyers who were probably explaining how many years in prison they faced for perjury. In the SUV, on the way back to the mansion, Frank spoke softly. How do you feel? I don't know. I should feel victorious, but I just feel empty. It's normal. You've just seen the true face of the people you loved. It hurts, even if they deserved what they got. Do you think I was too hard on Claire? No. You were fair. She made choices, Henry. Conscious choices to lie, to betray you, to try and destroy you. The consequences are hers, not yours. We arrived at the mansion just as it started to rain. Jane was waiting for us at the entrance with towels and hot tea. Frank went up to his room to rest, and I stayed in the sitting room, watching the rain fall on the garden. My phone vibrated. It was an unknown number. I hesitated, but answered. Henry. It was Greg, Claire's husband. What do you want, Greg? I need to talk to you. Claire is devastated. She's at home, crying nonstop. The kids are asking what's wrong. Please, Henry, you have to drop the charges. She made a mistake, but she doesn't deserve to go to jail. A mistake? Greg, she lied under oath. She tried to destroy my reputation. She tried to help Lisa rob me. I know, and it was stupid. But please, think about your nephews. You can't leave them without a mother. His words hit me. My nephews. Manuel, 7, and Gilda, 5. Innocent children who were not to blame for their mother's actions. Greg, Please, I'm begging you. Claire is willing to apologize publicly, to retract everything she said, to do whatever is necessary. Just don't put her in jail. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of the decision on my shoulders. Let me think about it. I'll call you tomorrow. I hung up and went upstairs to find Frank. I found him in his private office listening to classical music. Dad, I need your advice. Tell me, son. I told him about Greg's call, about my nephews, about the guilt I felt. Frank listened in silence, and when I finished, he spoke with wisdom. Henry, justice and revenge are two different things. Justice is giving everyone what they deserve. Revenge is hurting because you were hurt. Claire deserves consequences for her actions. But the question you have to ask yourself is, what kind of man do you want to be? The kind of man who destroys families even if they are at fault? Or the kind of man who sets firm boundaries but shows mercy when possible? I don't know. Then think about it tonight. And tomorrow, when you have the answer, you'll know it's the right one, because it will come from here. He pointed to his chest, where his heart was. I didn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, thinking about Claire, my nephews, Lisa, and everything that had happened. And at some point in the early morning, as the rain continued to fall outside, I knew what I had to do. The next morning I called Mark. I want to drop the perjury charges against Claire, but with conditions. What conditions? That she publicly retracts everything she said, that she apologizes in the same media where she defamed me, and that she signs a document acknowledging that she lied and agreeing to have no contact with me ever again. And what about Lisa? With her, I'm moving forward. Let her face the full consequences. She doesn't have innocent children who will suffer for her actions. Understood. I'll prepare the documents. When I told Frank my decision, he smiled. You did the right thing, son. You showed that you are better than them. But you also set clear boundaries. That is wisdom. 2 days later, Claire appeared on a radio program, her voice breaking, and retracted everything. I lied about my brother Henry. I said terrible things that were not true. I did it out of greed, envy, and stupidity. Henry is a good man who deserved none of what I did to him, and I ask for his forgiveness, even though I know I don't deserve it. I heard her confession on the kitchen radio. Jane was preparing lunch and glanced at me. "Feeling better, Mr. Henry?" Not better, but at peace. And it was true. For the first time in weeks, I felt peace. 6 months later, my life was completely different. The divorce from Lisa was finalized without any more issues. She received nothing, just as the judge determined, and had to face reduced charges for attempted procedural fraud. She received 2 years of probation and a $20,000 fine that she could never pay. The last I heard of her, she was living with a cousin in a small apartment, working as a cashier at a supermarket. Claire met all the conditions. She publicly retracted, signed the documents, and never tried to contact me again. Greg called me once to thank me for not putting her in jail. I told him I did it for my nephews, not for her. And it was true. Frank and I became inseparable. Every morning we had breakfast together, every afternoon we reviewed the businesses, every night we had dinner as the family we had chosen to be. He taught me everything about his empire, and I discovered I had a natural talent for business that I never knew existed. The adoption was legally finalized 3 months after the hearing. That day, when the judge signed the documents and handed me my new birth certificate that said Henry Sterling, I cried like a child. Frank cried too, though he tried to hide it. "Now you're officially my son," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'm officially your father. You were always my father, Dad, from the day you found me at that station." One afternoon we were sitting in the garden enjoying the sunset, when Frank spoke to me seriously. "Henry, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been holding on to since the day we met." "What is it, Dad?" "I wasn't at that station by chance. I went there because someone told me there was a man in trouble, abandoned by his wife. Stephen drove me specifically to that spot." I froze. "What? Who told you?" Frank smiled. "Jane. She's a distant cousin of one of the vendors at the station. That vendor saw everything that happened with you and Lisa. She told Jane, and Jane told me. And something in the way she described the situation made me want to go. It made me think that maybe, finally, I would find what I had been searching for 30 years. Tears ran down my cheeks. All this time, you knew. All this time I knew you needed help. But I didn't know that you would be exactly what I needed too. That was fate, son, or God, or whatever you want to call it. We sat in silence, watching the sun dip behind the mountains. "You know what the strangest part of all this is?" I said finally. "What?" "That if Lisa hadn't abandoned me that day, I would still be the same unhappy man, working in a warehouse, feeling small, letting people walk all over me. Her worst cruelty ended up being my greatest blessing." Frank squeezed my hand. "That's how life works sometimes. The worst things that happen to us end up being the things that transform us the most. That day at the station, when all seemed lost, was actually the day your real life began. And yours too, Dad. And mine too. Today, 2 years after that day at the train station, I am the CEO of Sterling Enterprises. Frank officially retired 6 months ago, although he still comes to the office twice a week to supervise, as he says. In reality, I think he just wants to make sure I don't mess up his legacy. I never heard from Lisa again. I heard she tried to sue me one more time, but her lawyer dropped the case when he saw it had no merit. Claire sends me a card every Christmas. I never open it. I just put it in a drawer, unread. Some bridges, once burned, cannot and should not be rebuilt. A month ago, I went to visit that train station. Stephen drove me, at my request. I sat on the same bench where I was when my life changed forever. The same bench where I cried, feeling defeated, believing I had hit rock bottom. A young couple was arguing nearby. The woman was yelling at the man, telling him he was a failure, that he was worthless. The man had a lost, broken look in his eyes, just like mine that day. I got up and walked over to them. The woman stopped shouting when she saw me approach. "Excuse me," I said to the man. "Do you need me to call someone for you?" He looked at me, confused, with tears in his eyes. "I'm fine, thank you." I handed him my business card. "If you ever need help, a job, or just someone to listen, call me." Anytime. The man took the card with trembling hands. The woman stared at me with wide eyes, probably recognizing the sterling name. I walked back to the SUV, where Frank was waiting. "Did you do a good deed today?" he asked with a smile. "I tried. I don't know if he'll call, but if he does, I'm going to help him, just like you helped me." That's how you build a legacy, son. Not just with money, but with compassion. On that day, I was left alone at a train station. I thought my life was over, but in reality, it was just beginning. I lost a wife who never valued me, a sister who never respected me, and a life that never made me happy. And in return, I gained a father who loved me unconditionally, a family I chose to build, and the dignity I always deserved but never claimed. Sometimes the worst betrayals are the greatest blessings in disguise. And sometimes finding your true home means losing everything else first. Today I am Henry Sterling, son, businessman, and finally, a man at peace with himself. And it all began the day a blind man whispered to me, "Pretend you're my son."